it would be between 100K to 120K. And when your experiences increases, it goes to 150K and maybe 200K as well. ML models, the machine learning models, tells you what happened. But statistics gives you the reason why it happened. If you don't know the reasoning behind why this thing happened, there is no sense to your study.
Today we are having a very honest conversation about data science. It's not just a buzzword, not the hype, but the real work behind the role that happens.
When I started working with data, it felt like you're actually doing something real because you're making an impact. When you work with data, you get to know so much things. You get to know different kind of trends, and you can really make a difference by doing something that would impact people.
Is it really happening, or how much percentage of work in reality is data modeling? What are the other things that are involved as a data scientist?
It's not like that you're every day seeing people modeling. No, it's mostly 20 to 30% of their time.
Why do you feel that patience is important for a data scientist?
Most of the times your models fail. Most of the times. It's not going to work the way you think it would work. You will have a lot of in the industry, because in industry works in a very different environment.
So when you gave that example, I was quite interested to understand, have you ever seen such cases of getting irrelevant data?
Data science people or expert people are not who know the answers. I think they know, they have the courage, they have the efforts to reach to the answers.
Welcome to the next episode of Women in Tech series in Swift Published. We are a team of engineers who are focused in bringing up tech insights from people around the globe. I am Dharshana, lead dev based out in UK. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. Our details are available on the description box. Follow and subscribe to Swift Published to stay tuned and be updated whenever we have new guests on our channel. We have already published mini series hosting various guests. Feel free to go and check out them. Now let's get into this episode. Today we are having a very honest conversation about data science. It's not just a buzzword, not the hype, but the real work behind the role that happens. Today our guest is Gagan, a data scientist who is currently working in the USA. We'll talk about her journey, what data scientists actually do day to day, and what skills matter. Also address about the salary myths that are there around this field. So to start with, Gagan, would you like to introduce about yourself and also tell us how you entered into data science?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Dharshana. Hi, everybody. So as she mentioned, I'm currently working as a data scientist at Oak Ridge National Lab. It's basically a research assistant's position. And side by side, I'm pursuing my PhD in data science and engineering at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. It's almost been 2 years for me to working as a data engineer, and I have also worked on different stuff in industry as well as in academia. And at just 6 months back only, I started my PhD to just accomplish more of the skills and get more depth of data science.
How has data science changed yourself, your thoughts, could be your confidence, or are you feeling independent? How is data science impacting your life?
So I feel like when you're working in data science, right, that's really opens up a lot of opportunities for you, right? When I started working as a data scientist, right, I never thought of working as a data scientist. It came like working on stuff and just going with the flow. And the opportunities came to me. When I started working with data, it felt like you're actually doing something real because you're making an impact. When you work with data, you get to know so much things. You get to know different kind of trends, and you can really make a difference by doing something that would impact people. I mostly like to do projects that are very socially impacted. They have the impact on society in a good way, not like just profit-based things. That was the only reason that even I started pursuing my PhD, even after having a job as a data scientist.
So you didn't mention that data scientist role as came into you just like it appeared onto your life. But then is there a moment where you felt, yes, this is where I belong to, this is my passion? What was that moment?
I think it started when I was in undergrad, right? My degree is in applied mathematics and computing. I think numbers has always fascinated me. I always wanted to study numbers. They always, talk to me. I see that, okay, numbers make, some kind of difference. they really have some kind of impact in our lives, even in our daily lives. We do calculations, we do maths and everything. The equations make sense to us. So I think data science is something like, even maybe I was not aware of the term, but somewhere I knew that numbers are going to be a part of my life. I always wanted to be like, yeah, that I can represent something in the form of equation, right? To have some kind of impact around ourselves or world and around the science and everything.
Gagan, you did mention that you are as a research assistant now into academia, and you also have worked in industry. How was your day at work in academia, and how different is it from the industry work?
I think there is a lot of difference between when you're working in academia or in industry. Whenever I was in academia, my roles, my responsibilities were quite defined. I knew that what I'm doing, what kind of project I'm working on, and there was less flexibility with experiments, right? End of the day, you are defined with milestones, projects you have to complete. But when you come with academia perspective, I think it's very important that you experiment. You get a lot of flexibility. You have creativity to work on. It's not like you don't get that chance in industry. You do get, but it comes with a time bound. There is always a time bound when you're working in industry. Like here in my lab, I'm currently working on projects. It does come with, but it has full freedom of my creativity. I can work on different technologies, different tools. I can experiment a lot. So I feel that was the only difference, because I'm free to, put my creative side around. Whereas there was less flexibility when it came to industry.
Gagan, there's always an impression that data scientists are mostly doing only data modeling. They're always building some models around data. Is it really happening, or how much percentage of work in reality is data modeling? What are the other things that are involved as a data scientist?
Yeah, I think yes, there is data modeling that is happening around, but I would tell you the real difference that only 20 to 30% part of data scientists goes in data modeling. You need to have the good data. If it's not there, then you cannot model. So most of the times the people are working right on building models. They're spending most of their time in data cleaning, processing the data, and making it more acceptable for their research. It's not like, oh, that you're every day seeing people modeling. No, it's mostly 20 to 30% of their time that actually goes in modeling.
Since you're into academia and you also did your masters, what is that is different from what you actually studied? So when you study something, and then when you work, you are like, I didn't know all these things on my studies. Was there anything that's different from what you studied and what you're implementing or in your day-to-day work?
The only difference between is that when you encounter the real world, right, nothing is ideal. When you're working on school projects, you're working on coursework, okay, this is the algorithm. Professor would be giving you the question that is based on what is being taught right in the class. And we already had a very clean data, like very much accepting form of it. But when you're working in industry or real life, nothing is ideal. The first problem comes with data. Like even if you see that how the data is getting collected, sometimes it's by surveys and everything. I think even you do the surveys, I do the surveys. Let's be honest, how many times are we actually answering it correctly? Sometimes we are in hurry, oh, just answer something. So it's very important. Like even after being into data science field, I started figuring out, now I'm taking it very seriously. Like, no, I think somebody at the back is working on this data, so I need to answer very nicely. Otherwise, nothing is going to be very perfect if your data is not nice. Just, masters or any classroom that just builds your skill set, that it prepares you for, introducing you to the terms. It doesn't teach you the full how deep it is. It just introduces the terms to you. Like I think most of this foundational study which we already do, that is already till our school times. Like I would say 12th standard after high school, when you enter the college, there are the terms that is getting introduced to you, that this is what it is. And everything has a foundation, what you have already studied during your school time, and you start going deep into it. The more deep you go, the more nicer, or maybe the depth of the topics you understand.
So, when you said about understanding depth of the concepts and things like that, what is the skill that you think is really needed for a data scientist?
I think this is it's a soft skill I would mention. There's a patience. But if I have to come around the technical part of it, the first thing it's very important, nowadays, which if I have to say, maybe SQL and Python. These are the two backbones which are required by any data scientist. And there is one more skill which most of the people don't understand, but it is the part of it is statistics. ML models, the machine learning models, tells you what happened. But statistics gives you the reason why it happened. If you don't know the reasoning behind why this thing happened, there is no sense to your study. There is no sense to your model. Because end of the goal, like the people, right? Most of the data scientists have to explain their models to the people who are coming from non-technical background. Maybe their clients or maybe their audience. So they have to use the simpler words. And I think statistics give you that kind of tool to explain it to others what it actually means. It could be different numbers to people, but what it makes, right? That should be easily deliverable to your clients or maybe to your audience. I think these are the three most important skills I feel people should have.
So I was about to ask about statistics because people know that statistics is important, and you also mentioned that statistics is one of the essential skills. But at the same time, most of them drop out of data science roles with the fear of statistics because it is vast, it is confusing, and so many interests into it. How do you feel, and have you ever felt difficult handling it?
As per of me, I think I loved mostly statistics and mathematics. My degrees were in mathematics and statistics. But yes, I think I had difficulties understanding the concepts. If you go into different hypothesis testings, right? ANOVA, there are a lot of calculations. But, when you love something, when you're trying to achieve something, I think that trouble never makes you feel, you know, bad or something like you feel like, oh, I'm tired of it. I think you enjoy solving troubles. I think data science, the people who enter into data science, they love solving problems. So I think it should be the good reason to say that data scientists drop because of statistics. But I think if they love solving problems, they would love the statistics as well.
That makes sense because why I asked that question is people are like, because it's high paid, people go like, okay, let me try get into data scientist, and then when they see the stats, that's when they back out, and then they come back to whatever they were doing. That's the reason I wanted to understand how much important you feel about statistics. And you said that you enjoy working about statistics, right? Can you explain one simple example or a statistics concept that you used on a real project?
I think you must be aware of, I think everybody would have heard about it, p value. People mention it all the times in their models. And this is one of the most famous term which we already use to justify our models. So if I have, if a person is statistics person, I would say p value. But if there are people, right, who are coming from non-technical background, I would tell them how much sure I am for my decision I made. It's basically that, okay, I'm showing the confidence in it that, okay, this is the confidence I have in my model that, okay, it's going to do this much better. I think most of the people don't understand. We say very large terms, p value, confidence interval, causation, interdependence, right? Dependence. When you actually see the impact in the models, right? I think you will be able to understand it. You will be able to see that, okay, what kind of difference it's making in the model. And you will be able to easily deliver. Like people say, okay, p value, or the p value of my model is this. But actually, it's just the confidence you're showing in your model that my model is going to do this much better.
So you did explain stats in simple words. I would ask if you have to explain about numbers, probabilities also involved into data science, right? if you are asked to explain to someone who is into non-technical side, how would you explain it in simple words?
So I think this is basically the equations we make in our real lives. If you go daily, right? If I ask you calculate the interest you will get in your, for your money that is already in your bank. So I think machine learning models are also like that. Basically, what we do, we take a data set, we take a research problem, and that would be business purpose or for research purposes. And you try to understand because I think everything is linked in itself. If you see, if the weather changes, people say, oh, what's the precipitation? What's the humidity? Why do they check these terms? Because they know that weather is changing because of these terms. If there is little bit change in these terms, right, the weather, the temperature around you would change. So I think machine learning model, if I have to tell, basically setting up the relationship between the quantity or maybe some kind of term you want to find out using those terms which you are already aware of. You know that, okay, I want to predict maybe the weather, right? Using temperature, what is the humidity, what is the precipitation, right? If you know these terms, you would be saying that, oh, it might snow, maybe, right? Every equation you encounter in your real life as well, like you know the formulas to convert degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit to Kelvins. These are basic, simple formulas you're building. And I think math models are also, or machine learning models are like that they're setting up the relationship between one term, associating all the terms that would impact it.
When you explained all this clearly, I'm curious to understand if there is a beginner, be it a fresher or an experienced person into a different, could be a developer, could be a DevOps engineer, could be a QA, who shows interest to get into data scientist. How much of stats should they get to know? How much do you think is enough to start as a data scientist?
When you were starting as a data scientist, you need to understand first the basic. There is advanced statistics as well, Bayesian statistics and everything. But before jumping into it, you need to understand hypothesis testing. What is the p-value? What is the impact? What is precision? What is recall, right? And how these things affect your model, right? Because most of the time people say, okay, if you want to check your model, check the R square value. But it is not always necessary that it is going to work like that. Sometimes you have to choose the characteristic or maybe the metric you want to decide your model based on how your data is. It's not always going to be the R square value. It's not always going to be the precision. So I think hypothesis testing, right, status, like I would say p value, confidence intervals, precision, recall, and basic stuff you should be aware of that at what moment you're going to use these.
So now that we have discussed about the essential skills, is there any skill that you have ignored in the initial days and also then later realized this is a critical skill which I didn't know about?
When I was learning my machine learning models and data science, I think I won't say I'm the best at coding. I won't say it, right? I learn every day because it changes with time. Like there are nowadays large language models going on, there are different stuff. So I feel it's very important for us to get updated with the tools that are getting updated in our coding environments as well. Because if you're aware of these things, right, these things would make it easier for you to build or different kind of models. I think I would keep enhancing or working on my coding skills because even today as well, even after working, even being in academia for a so long time, I still do my practices. I still revise my coding practices, solve different stuff so that I don't forget the concepts, or if something is getting updated, I am aware of it.
When we were discussing, you did mention about having patience as one important skill. So, from the soft skills side, I understood that patience is important. Why do you feel that patience is important for a data scientist?
Most of the times your models fail. Most of the times. It's not going to work the way you think it would work. Like you will have a lot of like in the industry, because in industry works in a very different environment. Because end of the day, it matters like you need to complete the work, right? Speed,
Mm,
credibility really matters, deliverables. So it's not their concern why it worked. But for research, since I'm in research, I have to have proper justification why it worked. Even if I
mm,
get the proper result, I still don't get it, then I have to go in depth that why did I get it? I was not supposed to get it. We start only
mm.
work by thinking that, oh, I'm experimenting and I might not get this. So most of your time, everything goes in researching properly and understanding why it worked and is it really actually the meaningful thing or not? Because sometimes numbers can be misleading too. Even if you got the result, you need to understand that it actually worked properly. Sometimes I have seen one research, like it was very funny that my professor in masters, he was taking a lecture and he told us that somebody was studying the data and everything, and they were calculating the weather using the data everything, and data had a color of hair of people, and it made some kind of assumption with it. Can you just, it makes sense for you that color of hair, right, of people will never impact the weather. It's your common sense. So numbers can be misleading. So it's very important, very patient work to justify your each step. Even if you have gotten the favorable results, you still keep on working properly, spending lots of time in researching others' work as well. That, okay, I should know where it lacks and what it lacks and why it lacks.
So, when you gave that example, I was quite interested to understand, have you ever seen such cases of getting irrelevant data? When you get irrelevant data, how do you identify them and ensure that they are not used on your research?
So it's a both different thing in academia or research perspectives. I'll tell you a little bit more from research perspective that when I start my data set, right, I look into, okay, what kind of study I want to do and what kind of problem I want to solve. So based on that, I see properly, what are the data sets on the sites or government sites, and there are other public available data, and I see what is inside it. You have to do a lot of background literature review and study that what people have done so far in this kind of perspective. When you read people's work, you get to understand that, oh, this is familiar. I think this gives you kind of path. And I think this is the same thing even we are meeting, right? So even if people are not at my place, still they will some kind of way relate to it. And they will start from there, their own journey. And the same way, when we are working on data as well, we do literature review to see what people have done. And I think that really helps you to get started, to experiment a lot. When you start experimenting, then start reading literature reviews, you start getting a sense of it. That, oh, this is what I can maybe add to it. Maybe this is the new thing I can experiment with. And it's so data science is all about having creativity and patience to experiment with your knowledge and literature review. It never comes with that everybody knows everything. It's just, I think I have read this topic somewhere when I started my PhD, that data science people or expert people are not who know the answers. I think they know, they have the courage, they have the efforts to reach to the answers. I think that's the proper way of putting it.
When we are talking about skills, I have one more question. Is there any skill that people over focus now, but then do you feel that it's not actually important?
People get very fancy nowadays. And since there is evolution of LLM models, large language models, and people are working and experimenting with a lot. Like maybe they don't understand the proper data science, but they experiment a lot with large language models, very fancy stuff that is going rag. And they might not be aware of it, that it actually works, what it works on. I think this is a very overrated thing. When you jump into data science, you need to have a foundation. And that comes with properly understanding what it is, then experimenting with already existing large language models or RAG queries. People nowadays are like, oh, I want to work on LLMs and everything. They build a lot of stuff, but they don't get it properly.
We have discussed more about skills. I think now we can discuss about the salary side of things, because that's something that people fancy and they get into this role, right? So it's more about, if I become a data scientist, it's people see that you get close to 100K, all that into that. Why do you think that data scientists are getting so much of attention, and what's their pay scale at the moment?
To be very honest, I never worked in India, right, when it came to pay scale. But as of average, like I've been in touch with people who work in India, right? Entry level, I would speak, because even I'm not that experienced. It's just 2 years, 2 to 3 years. I think in India, it's quietly around 6 to 12 lakhs per annum for entry level. I think it can be more, bit like more than 15, but it's very competitive. It's really very competitive. And as of, if I have to compare with US, I think it starts with like if you join a nice firm, right, properly little bit established, it would be between 100K to 120K. And when your experiences increases, yeah, it goes to 150K and maybe 200K as well.
Is there any salary that you have heard of and felt, is it really happening that people are getting so much salary?
I think yes. There was some random number. I'm not sure what's the truth behind it. I've just read it over LinkedIn. It was 350K. I don't know if it happens. Maybe it does, but I am not aware of it. I really don't have any knowledge about it that it actually happens because around me, no, I have not seen. Maybe the person is very like, you have to be very kind of brand person, right? Who's quite been famous in this field, not just working.
Okay, since you are into academia, do you see the pay scale difference in academia jobs and industry jobs, or are they almost the same?
There is a difference in academia, right? It might not be more of like higher number, maybe little smaller than the what you get in industry. But I think the academia comes with its own perks. It has different perks, right? I think it has different perks when it comes to your research work, right? And I think it has its own pros if I compare it with industry, because I think it comes with a lot of creativity, experiments. Then you get to know, collaborate with different people, right, around the globe. You attend different conferences. Industry people do it as well. That's not a thing. But for then you have to balance between, for industry people, it's like, yeah, you're working and at the same time you're involving yourself in that stuff too.
When you say that you are into academia, you would have your friends who studied with you on masters and they are into industry. Have you ever felt any societal pressure saying that if you're here, you would earn so much? And if you are, then you are still grounded to stay back in academia. What is the reason for you to still strive into academia, though you know that industry pays more?
When actually I was able to work and I was working, I left my job, right? I resigned from it to start my PhD, right, in August 25. Yes, like, it came to my mind. People had different opinions like, oh, why are you going? Like, you're already doing good in industry, right? You have a lot of work, because I was collaborating with people as well, even when I was in industry with like for research and everything. But I think this was very conscious decision and I knew that what I'm doing. I think I previously mentioned that I see what is good for me at a time and what I feel right about it. I am very at early stage in experiments and I feel that I enjoy research. I like to do experiments. And it's time for me to learn more stuff. It's not like you don't learn industry, you do. I love being in the environment of research as well, because this gives me more of freedom and different kind of collaborations and different kind of, taste, which I'm not getting maybe in industry at an early stage. Maybe the people who are, very senior level positions, right, they might be getting that kind of opportunities. But being at entry level, I think, you are very much serious about, oh, you're seeking stability. I think when we are at that age, we are like, oh, we should seek some stability, have some stable income, and just go with the flow. But I feel this was like it's in my life, I feel like I love to experiment also, because this is the time I can experiment with different things. It was always in my mind that I want to pursue PhD. When I graduated, right after my graduation, I started researching on PhD programs. And I think the PhD program I am in, I like it. And to be very honest, this was the only PhD program I applied to. This was the only program. If I wouldn't have gotten into it, I would not have done PhD at all. So because I researched a lot during those 2 years when I was working. I did work almost 1 year properly to my industry position, did my everything. Then last year I experimented a lot with collaboration for research, seeing what is happening around. Everything I feel, I think you mentioned before that people come to data science for higher salaries. I do see that point that you seek stability, you want to have, I think everybody wants to earn money, a lot of money. But end of the day, if you're not being satisfied, I've seen people who earn a lot, but they are not at peace. Maybe they don't enjoy their work. Then that is not a point of view, right? That is not a thing that you have studied this much. Things should bring peace to you, even if you're earning a little bit lesser than what you were earning before. If you're at peace, you're loving it, what you do, that really what matters. Because mindset can never be, I can say that, okay, you cannot buy it from outside using money. I think it comes from within.
Mindset and the inner peace that we say comes from within, right? You choose what you want. Yeah. We are now towards the close of the session. So there I have just a couple of questions for you. To someone who is listening to us today, if they're confused, scared, overwhelmed, what would be one honest advice that you would give them for them to pursue into data scientist?
If they're very passionate about it and love solving problems, right? And they're not afraid of, they are not like fast paced person who's like, oh, I should get the answer in just one step, right? I think they should go for data scientists. Don't be disheartened just because, there is a lot of competition and you don't see that, okay, there isn't a proper path to it. Like, let me take my example. To be very honest, my bachelor's was in mathematics and computing. My master's was in applied maths and machine learning. And the things happen when you're actually loving it. There are different names around it. Some people say data engineer, some people say data scientist, some say machine learning engineer, some people say AI engineer. Names doesn't matter. The impact you make with your work, the work you do, that really matters. So have something that you actually like. Just don't pursue salary, I would say. Don't pursue just salary. I think that would be a good word. Just salary shouldn't be the thing. You should see salary as well, but it shouldn't be the only parameter to decide your profession. You should go for something that brings some kind of peace in you. And I think when you are good in something, you will achieve anything. It's not like, okay, people are going in data science, so I will know. Then you will be stuck in a crowd because you're not enjoying it. You're just following something that people are doing.
So, was there any mistake that you did on your early careers that would help the audience know that you're not supposed to do it, better to avoid? Is there some mistake that you would say, learn from my lessons, kind of a lesson?
I have made a lot of mistakes when I passed out from school, right? I started my college. I think I should have done more independent projects as well. I think I was in India and I had a lot of course pressure, a lot of things, but I feel I should have done more of independent research, building connections, right? Learning from people. I think I learned it a little later. I know that we give reasons of things that, oh, I am busy in this, I'm doing this thing. But if those all things are part of one big ocean, you can take it along. You can take it right all together. So if you know that you want to end up like this, so your course, your projects, your research collaborations, right, could go along. It's just the time distribution. I would suggest that thing and have so many people, right, connections, talk to people, learn from their experiences, because I think everybody has made mistakes, what they are doing at this moment, right? So I think it's good to know what they made it right and what you can learn from them. It would really help you understand, okay, this I need not to make. You will make your own mistakes, but you will not repeat those.
Thank you, Gagan, for sharing this wonderful experiences with us. It was not just knowledge, but it was all real life experiences that you have shared along. And I hope this will help the audience also to understand data science role better, how much of data impact happens, how important is a data that when you fill into a survey, it is not only about understanding the data scientist role, but then I think going forward, when I fill a survey form, I would be more cautious about what is that I'm going to input into the data form. And I would start seeing the engineers who are working behind it. So that was an excellent experience with discussing with you. Thank you for that, Gagan. Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much, Darshana, for having me here. Yeah, it was really nice talking to you. And, I hope it would help people to understand and maybe it would answer some of their questions, what they are seeking.
Thank you, Gagan, again. So, to the audience, if you want to connect with Gagan to understand more about data science, get into academia roles, any guidance with respect to master's, PhD, feel free to get connected with her. Her LinkedIn profile will be given on the description box. You can go and check out there. Thank you again, Gagan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.